A French court has just barred the country's leading right-wing politician, Marine Le Pen, from running for office. The court sentenced her to 4 years in prison as well. The French ruling comes just months after Romania's constitutional court overturned the results of that nation's presidential election, which also coincidentally was won by the right-wing candidate. And both rulings, of course, come shortly after Democrats in the U.S. tried, but happily failed, to preempt our nation's leading right-winger from winning his second term by kicking him off the ballot, as well as by trying to imprison him 4 different ways, as well as by nearly blowing his head off. Now, this is not how democracies are supposed to operate. In democracies, the people are supposed to be able to elect the candidates they want. In practice, however, many nations of the West are allowed to elect whomever they please, except for the candidates that liberal elites don't like, which tells us a lot about the actual regimes that rule us. Because, and I'm not the first to observe it, sovereign is he who decides the exception. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Kanye West has just conducted an interview in a full Ku Klux Klan outfit. Though the Ku Klux Klan outfit is not white, it's black, but he's got the pointy hat on. And anyway, we'll get to that in a moment. First, though, I want to tell you about 3-Day Blinds. Go to 3dayblinds.com/Knowles. I only really understood low-quality blinds for much of my life. You know, the ones that get all like tangled and messed up and they break. And then it was not until moving into my house, first house I ever bought here in Nashville, that I saw what really good window treatments can look like. That's why I'm so excited about 3-Day Blinds. They're the leading manufacturer of custom window treatments in the United States, and they make the whole process ridiculously easy. You can do all the shopping right from the comfort of your home. Right now, if you use my URL, 3dayblinds.com/Knowles, they're running a buy one, get one 50% off deal. Their design consultants have over 10 years of experience and come right to your home with thousands of samples. No more guessing what your blinds will look like. Best part, they handle everything. Design, measuring, installation. They even set you up with smart blinds that connect to your home automation system if that is something you want to do. After helping over 2 million people get their dream window treatments over the past 45 years, they definitely know what they are doing. Right now, get quality window treatments that fit your budget with 3-Day Blinds. Go to 3dayblinds.com/Knowles for their buy one, get one 50% off deal on custom blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery. For a free, no charge, no obligation consultation, go to 3dayblinds.com/Knowles, Knowles. Before we get to Kanye West's neo-Nazism, I want to talk about another Nazi. That would be the Nazi jurist Carl Schmitt, who is a political philosopher. And so just because he's a Nazi doesn't mean he never got anything correct. You know, it's sort of like, yeah, Hitler drank water too, okay? It's not... Heidegger was rehabilitated, wasn't he? So anyway, Schmitt was this political philosopher who had the misfortune of being associated with the Nazis. So, you know, that's a bad mark on your resume. However, he came to some serious philosophical conclusions. He's probably most famous for the friend-enemy distinction, which he says the politics all basically comes down to friend and enemy. And another one of his famous observations is that the sovereign is he who decides the exception. And this is obviously true here. It's true not just in Nazi Germany. It's true not just in fascist Italy. It's true in modern France and modern Romania and America and pretty much any society. The sovereign is the one who decides the exception. The people will elect the candidate that the people want. Well, except for Donald Trump, except for Marine Le Pen, except for Georgescu in Romania. And why? Well, okay, what does France say? This judge, Bénédicte de Pertuis, my French is a little weak, he has ruled that Marine Le Pen and some other members of her party committed embezzlement. They weren't just making administrative errors, but they embezzled some money. Like every other French politician, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the merit of the charges. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. One thing I can promise you is Marine Le Pen is not being imprisoned and barred from running for president because she embezzled some money. She is being barred from doing those things because she keeps getting closer and closer to actually winning elections, and the elites in France won't let her do that. Same thing in Romania. In Romania, Călin Georgescu, the right-wing candidate, won the presidential election, and the Constitutional Court of Romania annulled that election in early December. They annulled it because they said that this party took money from the Russians, or they broke some rule or some law, or so anyway, they're going to overturn the results. But they didn't really overturn the results because the party took money or did not take money from some group, or because the party violated some regulation or other. They annulled it because they didn't like the candidate, and they didn't want Georgescu, the right-winger, to take over in Romania. Same thing with Trump. Do you really think that President Trump, happily, Trump actually beat the liberals who were trying to do this to him. But do you really think that the liberals were trying to take Trump off the ballot or else imprison Trump, convict him on at least one of 4 counts, because they don't like that he maybe slept with a porn star? Remember, that was one of the charges. He slept with a porn star and covered it up. I don't think so. I don't think the party of Bill Clinton, or really any, I mean, they're all freaks in Washington, D.C., and especially the Democrats. I don't think it had anything to do with the scandal. Is it because Trump was holding classified documents in an unsecured location? I don't think so. Biden was holding, I think, more documents in a much less secure location in a place that his crackhead son had access to. His crackhead son, who was peddling American influence overseas to the highest bidder. No, wasn't that. It's because they didn't want Trump to win. And so all of the attempts to take him off the ballot or the attempts to imprison him, all of those were just procedures that were serving a predetermined conclusion, namely that Trump could not be the president. Because certainly in many countries in the West, and in our own country until recently, the sovereign was the liberal elite, which is why the transfer of power to Trump has been violent. It's why you didn't really see it on the establishment media, but it's why when Trump was elected in 2016, the liberals were setting cars on fire in Washington, D.C. It's why agencies of the state were being turned to subvert that election and then to overturn it when he actually won in 2016. It's why the libs changed all the election rules in 2020 to stop Trump from winning a second term. It's why they justified his assassination in 2024. Because that's an actual change in regime. So we're seeing this throughout the West. This is a seismic political shift, not just in one office or one party taking over for another party. It's a shift in the way that our political order operates. And it's why the agents of the state are doing their best to suppress what the people want. You're seeing this in the UK right now, too, by the way. The United Kingdom, I teased this on the show yesterday. We didn't have time to get to it. The United Kingdom, in the courts, notice how the courts seem to be playing a huge role in this, because the people don't like these kinds of far liberal policies. So the courts have to step in to undermine what the people want. The courts have decided that white men need to serve longer and harsher prison sentences than any other group of people for committing the same crimes. That's it. Sometimes when you read these stories, it sounds like we're being hyperbolic or partisan and polemical. No, that's just what's happening. Even the liberal politicians in the UK are admitting that this is completely insane. Of course, because they don't want to stand election defending sentencing white men to harsher prison sentences on the basis of their sex and their race. But this is supposed to come into effect today, and magistrates and judges, according to this ruling, would have to consult a pre-sentence report determining whether to imprison someone of an ethnic or religious minority. All sorts of people. So Keir Starmer, this awful lib prime minister, he said he's prepared to fight the courts on this, to stop the introduction of a 2-tier system of justice. He said all options are on the table to stop it from being implemented. But what I have to ask the liberal politicians is, why? Isn't this the logical conclusion of DEI? If you say that the goal of the state is diversity and equity, some type of equality of outcome, and inclusion, then don't you need to have a 2-tier system of justice? You're saying that people are not beginning from the same starting place. So the only way to institute justice is to treat people differently according to the metrics that you deem important. DEI deems race very important. It deems sex important when it's convenient, then it denies sexual reality when it's convenient, alternately. But what it comes down to, if we're talking about friend and enemy of the political left, comes down to punishing white people to give an advantage to non-white people and punishing men to give an advantage to women and people who don't know what sex they are. And it's just a basic principle. If DEI says that you are going to artificially elevate certain favored groups, then the only way you can do that is by artificially suppressing other groups. What else are you going to do? If you say, we need, through some artificial process that we've come up with, to forget about prison sentences and just look at affirmative action. If you say, we need more black people or Hispanic people in the universities, right now we have too many white people and Asian people in the universities, then that means in order to achieve your DEI goal, you're going to have to take those university spots away from white people and away from Asian people. You're just going to have to suppress them. So, yeah, why wouldn't that apply to prison sentences too? I agree with the libs who are recognizing that this is really wicked and bad and not preferable, and they don't want it. They're going to vote against it at the ballot box. But my question to them is like, oh, where have you been for the last 20 years, the last 50 years? Where have you been? It hadn't occurred to them. Kind of like how trans sports was what finally opened people's eyes to the preposterous nature of the sexual revolution. They said, oh, okay, this is great. And my question on the trans sports is, oh, where have you been? We've had gender dysphoria since feminism. Feminism, which says that women should just be men. Then they redefine marriage. They have all the weird pride stuff in the streets. So, okay, all right. It took Husky Hank giving some girl a concussion in a volleyball game to wake you up. Okay, well, I guess the same is true of DEI here. It takes a two-tier system of justice that sentences white men to longer and harsher prison sentences for you to realize that DEI is bad news. Okay, great. So now the people are against that. But you think that the liberal elite are just going to give up political power? I don't think so. If you believe that, you are really politically naive. I've got a bridge in the United Kingdom to sell you. I got a bridge in London to sell you, okay? They're going to hold on. So what you can expect as this shift takes place is more elections overturned, more conservative politicians being imprisoned. You can expect more political violence, the likes of which we saw with the left attacking the right when Trump won in 2016. They ain't giving up without a fight. Now, speaking of the nature of things, I want to tell you about Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles. Balance of Nature fruits and veggies is the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily, especially if you're focused on creating a healthier, happier lifestyle. Nature is pretty good at giving us the nutrients we need through our fruits and vegetables. So Balance of Nature takes fruits and veggies, freeze-dries them, turns them into a powder, puts them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, your body knows what to do with them. Balance of Nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle and has no intention to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, or any other healthy habits. It's intended to be used in concert with other healthy habits. I love Balance of Nature. I know that my team loves Balance of Nature. Some of them have a relatively healthy lifestyle. Some of them, like me, are a little bit less healthy in other areas. So all the more reason to look for Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code Knowles, KNWLES, for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That is balanceofnature.com. Promo code KNOWLES. Balanceofnature.com. Promo code Knowles. I also really want to tell you, as I fumble with my beautiful Mayflower Triple Flame lighter, about my Smells and Bells candle. Because Matt, greedy Mr. Walsh, is upset that I'm selling a zillion candles a day. So he's trying to beat the Smells and Bells candle at thecandleclub.com/Michael. He has his own candle, and it's apparently named after his goat or something. So I'm offering you the opportunity to make your home smell like a 12th century monastery. Walsh is giving you the opportunity to make your home smell like his goat. I don't think he's going to win the competition. Now, speaking of racial identity politics, Kanye West is doing Nazi stuff again. This is a lot of Nazi stuff in the show today, isn't there? Well, anyway, Kanye West is doing Nazi stuff, neo-Nazi stuff, I guess. He's wearing a Ku Klux Klan outfit, but it's not a white one. It's a black one. Now, there have been This kind of outfit, the Ku Klux Klan outfit, it didn't begin with the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, you'll still see religious groups in Spain wearing this outfit. It's kind of a medieval outfit, the conical shape. But I don't think that Kanye West is doing his best impression of a medieval Spanish religious order here. I think he's, given his recent statements, and by recent I mean his consistent statements of the last 5 years or so, I think he's doing this to be provocative and to look like a neo-Nazi. The funniest part of it, though, is while wearing the Ku Klux Klan outfit, he's doing an interview with DJ Academics, and he just talks about totally mundane pop music stuff.
What is the real thing with you and Drake? Like, I've always been confused. It feels like, I can't tell if it's a love-hate thing. I've watched hundreds of hours of you talking about just interviews.
Yeah, my first question, Kanye, what's up with the beef with Drake?
The energy shifted, and then we just start seeing it everywhere. And I can't tell, what is it?
Yeah, it's like family members that you don't f with. Like, I appreciate, one thing is Drake is a million times better than Kendrick and a million times more important. You know what I'm saying? What Future has done, Thug, what Drake just culturally is, that last year I couldn't barely sit through that. That was insane, bro. That had Lucian Grange, Universal, Drake lawsuit written all over it. At the end of the day, all this I'm saying, Jim Jones, Kendrick did, all these celebrities, the funny thing is we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, so that's the first question that came to mind. Yeah, Kanye, man, looking at you here, it's DJ Academics here, and my first question, I'm looking at you here. The first question is, what's your favorite Kendrick song? Like, what's the deal with Justin Bieber, I don't know. That wouldn't be the first question to come to my mind. But it is kind of funny. It's funny, man, and it got attention, and it's doing exactly what Kanye West wants it to do. The problem, however, is that there's really nowhere left for this narrative to go. Because as I've observed for quite some time now, Kanye West's Nazi turn, the swastika necklaces and going on Alex Jones and saying, I love Hitler and, I love everyone, but especially Hitler, whatever it was that he said, was the most provocative thing that it is possible to say in our modern culture. Because all cultures have a mythos to them, and mythology can be grounded in reality or history rather, hard facts that actually happen in time and space. History can be grounded in stories of an ancient bygone time. It doesn't really matter. There are myths that are true. There are myths that are, did not historically take place, but they get to certain truths about human nature. But it doesn't really matter. In our culture, in the post-war order, there's a reason we call our political order the post-World War II political order. The mythos that has defined it is Hitler. And so because it's liberalism, because it has to invert Christianity, there's no incarnation of absolute good, with evil being the privation of the good, but it's the opposite. There's the incarnation of absolute evil, which is Hitler, and there are just varying degrees of privations of evil the further away you get from being a Nazi, which is why Nazi is the worst thing you can be called. The right calls the left Nazis, the left calls the right Nazis. Whenever anyone disagrees with anyone about any matter, including whether you want milk in your tea, you call your opponent a Nazi. So when Kanye comes out, what was that, a year or 2 years ago? And he comes out and he says, I love Hitler, and he goes full Nazi. There is a reason that he's still doing the Nazi stuff today. And the reason is there's nowhere else to go in that narrative. Once you say, I love absolute evil, there's nothing more shocking to say. You can kind of edge up to, I'm just trying to think in right-wing politics. Maybe you say, I don't think we should trans the kids. Okay, all right, how do we be more provocative? I don't think we should... So what happens now? There will have to be some new mythos. There's got to be some new narrative. Even the hatred of Jews, which has cropped up on the far left and on the far right as well, even that is going to get tedious after a while. It's really shocking and provocative, and in the same way that Kanye is saying, I love Hitler is. But that will become mundane as well. You'll just hit a wall because there's nowhere else to go. Mr. Davies pointed out to me yesterday. He said this rising hatred of the Jews. It's kind of like the new climate change. Which I guess makes sense because they control the weather, of course. But for a long time, the left and the squishes on the right, they would just blame everything on climate change. Rising prices, mass migration, everything. It's just climate change. Power outages, wildfires, burning down their mismanaged cities. It's all just climate change, And so I guess the Jews are kind of the new climate change. But really, if you want to get down to the ultimate cause of our problems, it's the personality of evil combined with the human concupiscence and original sin that permits us and inclines us to cooperate with evil. That's really what it does. That's not quite as sexy. So it's actually the sun monster, or it's this group, or it's that, or whatever. It's racism or sexism or whatever. But that's actually what it is. And so there will be some new narrative to emerge. But until then, this is Kanye's act. Until there is a pivot in the self-understanding of our polity, I don't know what's left to do. It's just going to be different iterations of neo-Nazism. Okay. But now, speaking of fascism, on the left, the libs are running the same tune as well. And this has affected even Yale University, where I am traveling today. If you happen to be in New Haven or around New Haven, or even if you're in New York, take that Metro North train up, because I'm going to be speaking at Yale this evening. My alma mater, they've somehow permitted me to return. I'll be speaking in the main lecture hall there, and I'll be speaking there. I will enter Yale as a Yale professor flees to Canada because of fascism in America. We'll get to all of that. We will clear the air. But first, I want to tell you how to clear the air in your home with Rabbit Air. Go to rabbitair.com. I love my Rabbit Air. I've had a Rabbit Air purifier in my office for maybe years at this point, running almost 24/7. I love it generally because I live in Nashville, which is the allergen capital of Earth. But I also love it because, I like a cigar on occasion, and Rabbit Air is perfect. If you want to have those nice cigars indoors, but you don't want your wife to complain about it, you need the Rabbit Air A3 purifier. Extremely impressive. They've won awards for their design that uses 6 stages of filtration to clean your air. Doesn't just catch particles floating around, it actually removes odors and pollutants too very quickly, so your home feels fresh. The A3 purifier is a game changer with its dual hive activated carbon filter that boosts efficiency by an impressive 26%. Unlike the old single layer design, this one features 2 offset layers of optimized carbon pellets. What does that mean for you? More carbon surface area, better air contact, much stronger odor removal capabilities. I just love it. If you're a cigar enthusiast like me, looking for next level air purification, this is the one to check out. Also, if you just talk to the serious cigar guys, this is the one that they use. Okay. It's designed in LA, comes with a comprehensive 5-year warranty for peace of mind. rabbitair.com. Call them anytime. Their consultants are available 24/7. rabbitair.com. The Daily News, this is a play on words. It's Nous, which is a Greek word and a philosophical term for intellect, the intellectual part of the spirit. The Daily News is reporting in an email, this professor, Jason Stanley, is quitting Yale. He writes, quote, "The decision was entirely because of the political climate in the United States. Stanley had an offer from Toronto and decided to accept it last Friday night after Columbia's capitulation to the Trump administration's demands." Now, okay, remember this. Jason Stanley says he's fleeing the Ivy League to Canada because of rising Nazism and fascism. Okay. What is one of the most notable endeavors of the fascists? Would be to harass Jews. Why is the Trump administration threatening to withhold federal funding to Columbia? Because the Columbia administration permitted lots of agitators and pro-Palestine protesters to harass Jews. So it's confusing. The growing fascism is a little bit confusing. In fact, just the leftist impulse to call everything you don't like fascist, it's a little bit confusing. But that's this guy's whole shtick. As far as I'm concerned, he's more a journalist than an actual scholar. And his job is to go on left-wing TV channels and say, I'm a Yale professor. And as a Yale professor, I just want you to know that Trump is a big fascist. And also the other Republicans are big fascists. And fascism is on the rise. And I'm a Yale professor. It's kind of how the left-wing news channels bring on Bob Woodward, who, as far as I can tell, had one story in his entire life. And the story was, it was given to him by the deep state, which was doing a coup on Richard Nixon. And he took down Richard Nixon with the Watergate scandal. And then Woodward and Bernstein would go on TV for the next 40 years. And their only job was to go on and say, this latest Republican scandal, it's the new Watergate. Oh, why, yes. All right, we're joined right now by Woodward and Bernstein to explain why whatever the Republican we least like right now, why what he's doing is the new Watergate. It's worse than Watergate. And so anyway, that's what Jason Stanley does. I don't think he contributed anything to Yale and or to America. And now he's going to Canada. There's one last little funny bit of his fleeing to Canada, which is if he wants to flee the increasingly authoritarian kind of government here, Canada might not be the best place. Do you remember? I'm no great historian like those geniuses at Yale, but I remember back in 2022, there were these things called the trucker protests in Canada. And there were these truckers who didn't want to be forced to inject. And so what did the government of Canada do? Did they accept the free expression, and bodily autonomy, man? Let the truckers do what they want. No, they actually stole all their money, froze their bank accounts, and arrested them and continue to harass these poor guys. There was a GoFundMe campaign for the truckers. Canada just took their money, just took it. I don't even know what the legal predicate for that was. They just took it. Doesn't matter. Sovereignty, who decides the exception. So anyway, Yale professor fleeing the increasingly authoritarian America for Canada. Best known for arbitrarily arresting citizens, stealing their money, and killing them too. They also now, the medical assistance in dying law is killing an increasing number of Canadians. So, okay, enjoy it. Enjoy America's evil top hat, man. We'll just be down here with our rising fascism. Now, speaking of our national neighbors turning from the north down to the south, LA Times has a great story out right now. Headline, California-Mexico border, once overwhelmed, now nearly empty. That's really weird. Just the first, won't read the whole article, but first paragraph or two, really great here. With so few migrants coming into the U.S., shelters that once served migrants have closed. The Border Patrol has been bolstered by 750 U.S. military troops. And in recent months, 6 miles of border wall have been outfitted with concertina wire. Okay, so only 6 miles of border, they've added a little bit of wire to. But they say when the humanitarian aid workers decided to dismantle their elaborate tented setup, erected right up against the border wall, they hadn't seen migrants for a month. So they're dismantling it, not even because Trump is pressuring them to do so. It's because there are no migrants anymore. Because Trump is just enforcing the law. So you remember for 6 months, the Democrats told us that they needed a new immigration law passed by Republicans in Congress, allegedly being stymied by phone calls from President Trump. They needed a new law in order for Biden to stop the mass migration of foreigners across our southern border. And at the time, I said it was ridiculous. Republicans should totally ignore that bill, totally ignore the Democrat demands, because the Democrats had proven, Joe Biden had proven, that he wasn't willing to enforce the immigration laws on the books. So why would a new immigration law impel him to enforce the law? No, all they wanted was amnesty. All they wanted was an easier way to bring in all of those millions of people. And Trump has proven that. Trump's been in office for 2 months, and the illegal immigration has stopped. Now, Trump is also deporting people. We hope that the deportations will increase in volume. But at the very least, there are no new people coming in. It's just done. This proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that all of the various border crises in recent memory were just Democrats breaking the law. That's it. Every border crisis has been contrived. It's been manufactured. All of the claims that the Democrats make that they can't stop the influx of migrants have been lies. The entirety of mass migration into this country has occurred primarily because Democrats just wanted to break the law. That's it. not going to help the Democrats at the ballot box when they now see so clearly that one of the biggest issues for Americans, poll after poll, now for something like 10 years or more, that they have been on the wrong side of it, and they've been deceitful, even about their position on the wrong side of it. So what are they going to do? Are they just going to give up? No, probably not. Probably you're going to see more pushback from the liberal elite in the institutions that they still control. The bureaucracy for now, the judiciary for now. Now, speaking of one weird trick to improve things, we turned from the Trump administration to Major League Baseball, where the Yankees just cannot stop hitting home runs. I'm a Yankee fan. You know this. It's the only sport that I watch. It's the only team that I follow. So I was watching the Yankees-Brewers game on Saturday. The first 3 pitches against actually a recent New York Yankees pitcher, Nestor Cortez, but now he's on the Brewers. First 3 pitches, all home runs. First 3 pitches of the game, 3 hitters, back to back to back, all home runs. What's going on here? Well, the first 2 batters, not Aaron Judge, but the first 2 batters were using a new kind of bat, and they're calling it the torpedo bat. And the bat kind of pairs down at the end. Instead of coming up like a normal bat where it gets wider and wider and wider and then kind of levels out and remains the same, it gets wider and wider and wider, and then it kind of comes back in a little bit at the top, and it looks like a torpedo. Now, Judge was using the old style bat, so you can't chalk his home run up to that. But the Yankees just keep absolutely blowing the ball out of the park. And other teams are upset about this. They're complaining that the New York Yankees are using a new bat which even they will admit breaks no rules in Major League Baseball. And this has a political lesson for me. And I'm glad because I am actually a supporter of the team that is benefiting from the new bats, but I want this to apply to my political team as well. I want this to apply to my political party. I do not ever want to be the political party complaining about the other guy using the new bats. I always, 100% of the time, want to be the political party that has the brilliant idea and the discipline and the follow-through to use the new bats that can be brought into the game and that can help you win the game. They don't break the rules. They just play better. Okay? The libs right now are complaining about the new bats. The libs right now are complaining that politics has changed and Trump in America and Brexit in the UK and Meloni in Italy and Orban in Hungary and the Vox Party to some degree in Spain and Alternative for Deutschland to some degree in Germany and all of it and the Front National in France. They've changed the game a little bit. Especially you see this with Trump. Trump won by assembling a new coalition. He did not appeal necessarily to rich Uncle Pennybags. He did not appeal to the country club set. He didn't just go for the same old voters. He messed up all the political coalitions, and he took 1 in 5 black guys and almost half of Hispanics and a lot of women and a lot of blue-collar workers. He really flipped the parties so that the party of limousines and rich Uncle Pennybags really is the Democrats now, and the party of the working man really is the Republicans. That had not been the case in my lifetime. He just changed it. I mean, he just got a new bat. And the libs are whining and crying, and meanwhile, Trump wins elections. That's the party I want to be. That's the party we are right now. Let's not forget about it. Let's keep cheering on the New York Yankees, who I thought were going to have a very bad season, but it looks like they now will have a good season. Do you want more of my show? Do you want more of the Michael Knowles Show on the Daily Wire? You need to become a Daily Wire Plus member and get exclusive access to my show, ad-free streaming, and early access to our biggest releases. Watch high-quality films and documentaries made by filmmakers who care about truth and storytelling. Join a community that shares your beliefs, not one that's trying to cancel Western civilization. Watch anywhere, anytime, on desktop and the Daily Wire Plus app for mobile and TV. And with new content added every week, there's always something worth watching. Join today at dailywire.com/subscribe. My favorite comment yesterday is from Kareze Pelham 7682, who says, "Wonder when they're going to be disrespectful to Muhammad. Oh, right, they wouldn't dare." This, I think, in response to the Satanists who were trying to desecrate the Eucharist, allegedly, and do a black mass in Kansas yesterday. We talked about it yesterday on the show, but of course this happened a few days ago and the Satanists ended up getting arrested and a Catholic hero ended up consuming the host. And it was really, really great. Yeah, when are they going to do it to them? They're going to try to offend the Muslims. They won't. When are they going to do the anti-Quaker service? You're not going to see that. It's always anti-Christian, and specifically it's always anti-Catholic. And to me, that's a mark in favor of the Catholics. If you're on the fence, to me, that's a mark in favor of the Catholics. Now, speaking of games, playing around, there's a report out of the UK, a lot of problems in the UK right now. A toddler was kicked out of a nursery in the UK for being transphobic. It's real. It's according to statistics from the 2022 to 2023 academic year. This is at a state school. It's all available now, reported by The Telegraph and the Daily Mail. A toddler was kicked out of the nursery after having been accused of transphobia. 94 pupils at similar primary institutions were suspended or permanently expelled for transphobia or homophobia. We are talking about kids between the ages of, what, 3 or 4, and 7. These are kids down to nursery school up to 2nd grade. Kicked out for homophobia and transphobia. And that should not be surprising. It kind of drives me crazy when I see, especially conservatives, they say, "Can you believe this? Can you believe this is crazy? Is it? How could they go this far?" Well, of course I believe this. This is the logical conclusion of the sexual revolution. What is supposed to be surprising? That a kid was kicked out of school? Kids get kicked out of school. Kids are suspended and expelled from schools. So that shouldn't be surprising. What is surprising is that it was for transphobia or homophobia or whatever, but that shouldn't be surprising either, because according to the morality constructed and enforced by the left, the new official morality, which is rather immoral, it's untethered from the actual objective moral order, but it's still a kind of a morality that is enforced, then some of the worst sins in the world are homophobia and transphobia. You know, it wouldn't be surprising if a kid got kicked out of the 2nd grade for stealing, or at least suspended. Wouldn't be surprising if a kid got kicked out of kindergarten or at least suspended for lying to his teacher or to other students. Wouldn't be surprising if a kid got expelled for becoming really violent with some other student, even down to the nursery school age. Biting a student, or I don't know, bringing a weapon to the school or something. That wouldn't be surprising. So in a traditional society, in a normal society, those are the kinds of things you'd be punished for: stealing, lying, committing violence. But in our ridiculous modern liberal society, those actual sins are replaced by fake sins like homophobia and transphobia. So yeah, this should be totally expected. Kind of like the 2-tier system of justice in the UK. If you insist upon diversity and equity and inclusion and artificially boosting certain groups and artificially, well, even if you just engage the former, you're going to necessarily have to suppress artificially other groups. Same thing here. No surprise at all. So if you don't like that, then it can't just be, oh, well, this is crazy. Kids shouldn't have to deal with this until they reach the 5th grade. No, then just the reason it's wrong is because transphobia is a ridiculous concept, because transgenderism is a ridiculous concept, because it's a false anthropology. So just forget about it. Stop thinking about transphobia. That's not the sort of thing that anyone should be punished for. Homophobia, what does that mean? Viewing aberrant sexual acts with moral opprobrium? What's wrong with that? I'm not saying you should be cruel to people or anything, but to have that view, what's wrong with that? Nothing. But that means you need to reset the moral order. That means, in other words, a change in regime, a restoration to a more sane kind of sovereign. And the people who are actually in power are not going to give that up so quickly. This comes down ultimately not just to morality and culture, but to a kind of spiritual warfare, as the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just explained to CBN News.
It's warfare out there. In Christian terms, people will call what's happening in our country today spiritual warfare. Yeah. Do you see it in those terms, kind of good versus evil out there, and that context? How do you see that?
I certainly believe in spiritual warfare, and I think I saw it firsthand, especially throughout the campaign trail with President Trump. And I think there certainly were evil forces, and I think that the president was saved by the grace of God on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, and he's in this moment for a reason. We're all here for a reason, and I think it's a miraculous thing that has taken place in our country.
Okay, so obviously all of that's true, and it raised all sorts of liberal eyebrows. Oh, this woman's going off about spiritual warfare. Oh, goodness, this has become a cult. This is superstitious. This is whatever, all the stuff that the Reddit tier atheist libs usually say. But, to deny spiritual warfare, that means you would have to deny the reality of evil on the one hand and free will on the other. To really think the language that Caroline Leavitt, the spokesman for the Trump White House, is using is crazy or something, even if you're some atheist or agnostic or lib or whatever, in order to really object to this language, you would have to deny that there is such a thing as evil, and I don't think they would deny that. When they call everyone a Nazi, what they're saying is you're evil, so they wouldn't deny that. And I don't think, do they deny free will? They might deny free will in the abstract. They might say they're determinists and they don't really, but they behave as though free will exists. Like, for instance, if I started punching them in the face, they'd tell me to stop, or they'd hold me responsible in a court of law or something for what I did. So they would, in other words, hold me accountable for using my free will in an abusive way. So, okay, if you believe in evil and free will, you believe in spiritual warfare. That's all it is. That's all that is. Now, one last story on the Trump admin that I've been trying to get to for a couple of days, and I don't want to move on too quickly from it. You remember Signalgate last week when Mike Waltz, the national security director, added Jeffrey Goldberg, the head of The Atlantic, the editor for this liberal magazine, to a group chat with Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, with the head of the CIA, with all sorts of top administration officials. And they were discussing the Houthi bombing. And then Goldberg wrote this Atlantic article. The Trump admin texted me their war plans. Trump was asked about this. He finally made a comment about it. And his comment tells you a lot about his approach and how he views politics.
We have an amazing group. Our national security now is stronger than it's ever been. There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use. But the main thing was nothing happened. The attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience. I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael. He's a good person.
There is Michael there is talking about Michael Waltz. And Trump makes a point to say that it was a staffer. It was a staffer for Michael Waltz, added this person in, and so, it's no good. Now, I've paid attention to politics long enough. I've been around D.C. enough time to know that blame it on the staffer, there's not always a real staffer there, okay? But what blame it on the staffer means is that the National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz, still has Trump's support. That's what Trump is signaling here. Blame it on the staffer just means I'm still backing Mike Waltz. I'm not throwing my guy under the bus. We have yet to see a Trump administration staffer really get tossed under the bus. The Trump admin remains tight, loyal, moving forward. Almost as though President Trump recognizes that politics does largely boil down to friends versus enemies, and he's made a conscious decision of who his friends are going to be here. And he knows that that's how the left views politics. The left would never break, would never throw one of their guys under the bus in this kind of a situation. So he recognizes, okay, it's a team sport, and right now our team's winning, and so I'm not going to be sidetracked. I'm not going to be held to principles by the left that the left doesn't even believe in and that are morally dubious anyway. Full steam ahead. So now we look forward to, just a little preview for tomorrow, a Liberation Day, April 2nd, the day when global trade as we know it could come to an end. Buckle up. Today's Tee Tuesday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. If you don't come to the Membrum Segmentum, then I'll just have to see you at Yale later tonight.